And hi everyone, welcome to eLearnChat, where you always learn something new. I'm Rick Zanotti, and I'm joined today by my good friend coming to us from just outside London, but she's Scottish, of course. It is Leslie Price. How are you, Leslie?
I'm good, thank you.
We had a couple of evil Skype issues.
With all the nonsense that's going on, but hey-ho.
Oh, hey-ho, hey-ho. Oh, boy, is it nonsense. But anyway, moving right along there, we've got Harold on the video switcher and mixer, and we've got a great guest today. We'll introduce her in a moment. Here we go.
This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Digital learning development, media development, corporate video, management consulting, and more. Visit us at www.relate.com. Thanks.
And Leslie, would you love to introduce our guest?
Oh, I would love to introduce our guest. It's Julie Drybrough, known as Fuchsia Blue. She's a fellow Scottish lady, and Julie and I have known each other for a few years now.
Only a few years?
I was looking back and trying to work it out. I think it's about 10 or 12. It's actually quite a long time.
Well, you warned me ahead of time that there would be two Scottish women on this show, and that both of you can talk. Now, we cleared this with Julie ahead of time, but I bought something just in case it got out of hand. I've told you for years I had a claymore. I don't know if you believe me, but this is a real claymore. If I can pull it out of this thing right now, because I think it's stuck. There we go. Real claymore.
Wow.
And he actually has some pictures we took right before the show just to show you what the claymore looked like.
My goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah, but have you got... But Rick, where is your skiing do?
My what?
Your skiing do, your dirk. Your skiing do.
My dark.
Your dirk. D-I-R-K.
Dirk. I don't have my dirk with me. Dirk. No dirk.
Right, okay. It's the wee kind of thing
that
goes in your sock.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with that. No, don't have it. This was very impromptu.
I'm absolutely delighted that Julie's been able to join us, because I say Julie is a really good friend of mine. We've known each other for a long time, and she's very experienced in what she's doing, and what she's doing now with this Facilitation Shindig she's doing. The fact that she actually set it all up before all this crazy lockdown started. So Julie will be able to give us the background to it, but she'd actually started it long before then, almost as if she had maybe anticipated what life would be like in lockdown, and now that's what she's able to do. So to me, it's just, never mind a claymore, it's Top Gun.
I'm not sure. I think you might be crediting me with a wee bit much there, but okay, we can give it a go. So the shindigs, the original shindigs were in the room. So it was about face-to-face, in the room facilitation practice. And it was that notion that if the more webinars that we were seeing, the more online content, the more that organisations were creating really, really good online content, we became aware that if you were going to have people in the room, if companies were going to invest in having people in the room, the experience had to be superb. Like you had to be like really on your game in order to engage people and get them trying things and give them good experiences. And so the Shindig started from that. It was about bringing groups of practitioners together so they could practice with each other. We could try things out. We could look at how do we stretch our practice. So it began in 2007 in rooms, and then with the onset of lockdown, it became really obvious that there were practitioners who are extremely good in rooms who feel really de-skilled when they're in an online or virtual space.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's shifted now from, being in the room and creating in-room experiences to, well, how do we do this stuff online? And it's not about webinars. I think the groups of folk that I'm working with, it's not, they're not training, they're not doing webinar stuff. They are team building or running strategy sessions where there's no guaranteed outcome.
And the other thing that I should tell you that Julie does is something called what we have in the UK L&D co-work, and that is another part of what she does. So it's about getting people who work in learning and development together, and that's again been something that has gained traction, across the country. Am I right, Julie? It's actually gained traction across the country.
Yeah. So that's colleagues of mine, Fiona McBride and Michelle Parry-Slater started the co-working in London, and then Rachel Burnham and I took it and started doing it in Manchester. And it's basically like learning development practitioners coming together for coffee and cake, quite a lot of cake.
I know, I've been to a few.
It's quite a lot of cake. And they're just sharing their practice, sharing ideas, sharing frustrations. Just networking. Sometimes it's a bit more cool than working, but it's got a good vibe. There's a good community of practitioners for sure.
So you must have questions there, Rick.
Well, I'm just thinking about how that works or what exactly you're doing. I was in my brain, I was going quickly. If you say co-work, many, many times it winds up being quirk. So just kind of thought it'd be interesting. How does that work? How do you get people involved in, I understand the team building aspect, but how do you get them involved in the team building plus the facilitation part of it in these kind of impromptu or informal meetings?
For the co-working or for
the co-work? For the co-work.
Both.
Well, both actually, yeah.
And your co-work, because, I know you for doing both.
Yeah, I mean, I see them quite. I see them as quite separate parts of my practice. So co-working is something that Rach and I do, along with Mike Shaw and James Warburton in the Manchester lot, and then we've got an Edinburgh mob as well who are fantastic, like Bethany and Malcolm. And that's literally just we say that we're going to be here, and people come. Like we sort of arrange a cafe or somewhere where we're going to be, and we advertise it, and people who are working in learning and development. They come and they network with each other and they talk to each other about, like, I've got this issue, or I'm sore to this, or and it's I don't know, it's been running for 3 years. There were times when it was just Rachel and I sitting there at the start when everyone was like, what is this? But now we've got a community of between sort of 40 to 60 that come on a fairly regular basis. Busy day would be like 20 folk. So it's not huge, but it's quite powerful within its own way. And the community do share stuff and talk to each other. And
so with the Facilitation Shindig, what is it that you're actually? So are you actually offering this now? Are you offering it as a service to individuals, or are you offering it as a service to companies? I'm quite interested, genuinely, in this.
So it is both. Like, there's a corporate offering and an individual offering. So the Shindig as it stands is they are typically freelancers or people who've got small businesses who have been working as facilitators or coaches or group coaches, group facilitators for quite a long time, a lot of them. And it's kind of a little bit based on improvisation. So you turn up and you try something, and you have permission to mess it up. You have permission to fail. You have permission to it's kind of screw up within a group of people who are going to help you make it better. And the idea is, like, if we do it there in the room with a bunch of trusted peers who'll give us feedback, so we have the experience, and then we can, work from that. The idea is, if we do it there, then we're not doing that on our clients' time. We're not doing that on our participants' time. So we get to try it out amongst ourselves and improve it, and it's really iterative, and you get instant feedback, about what's working and what's not working. So a typical Shindig would lasts for, the online versions last for 2-hour taster sessions or 4-hour sort of proper Shindigs. And we arrive, we check in with each other, sort of check in how everybody's doing. There's space for experiments, so who's got something that they want to try today? So there's been a lot of playing around with Zoom breakout rooms. There's been a lot of messing around with whiteboards, Google Blackboards, Mural, Miro, those kind of things. And then people just try stuff out and they get feedback on it from each other. Very community-based, very sort of peer learning based.
So do you loosely facilitate sessions, or are you just kind of guiding them through it?
At the Shindig?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I'm definitely facilitating that. So the experiments will run, so I kind of hold the time for them, and then at the end of it, I will encourage reflection. So I'll say, okay, so let's and we use like a head, heart, hands model, right? So what was your data? What rationale? What was the process you put in place? What was the explanation that you gave? How did you do the setup? So you really think about that. And then how did that feel to run it? And how did that feel for the participants? So those who've been through it, so you get that data as well. And then the hands part is like, so what are the practicalities? What's the improvements? What are the things that you would do differently? So I facilitate with the guys and girls that show up.
That's great.
It's really, really nice, and it's fun as well, right? I mean, we are messing up. People do generally go, "Oh, I've had this thing I'm going to try and do," and they may have massively over-engineered it and made it really complicated. Mm-hmm. And they'll do like a 10-minute setup, and everyone's going, "What? What are we doing?" And then they go, "Oh, I've made that really complicated." And you're like, "Yeah, you really have." And so instead of the participants having that experience, we sort of do that on their behalf, right?
When you were doing it face to face, Julie, you were doing it face to face in Edinburgh or all over the UK, and now you're doing it online. Has that actually widened up everything? Are you getting more interest from all over the place? Because that was one of the reasons I wanted you to be on eLearnChat, because the audience that this goes out to is not just UK, it's US, there's people in Australia, it's all over the place. And I just thought, particularly when we're in this lockdown situation, it would be a great opportunity to share with people what you're actually doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It has been an absolute revelation, right? So I have always kind of thought of myself as being very analog, like in my practice, right? So I'm not digital. I don't.
I know.
I look at people like Joe Cook and the stuff that they do on webinars, and I'm like, I am not where they. That is totally her wheelhouse. I don't go anywhere near it. So for me, like, having to figure out how to do this online, first of all, was massively challenging, but that's okay. Like, we've got over that bit. And then the second part is, like, different people are coming. And obviously it's much more accessible, right? Because as we know, if you're doing it face to face, you can see maybe 10 people in a room, sometimes in a room with a bad carpet. And this is totally different. It's like, you know, people can come when they need to come, and yeah, we can do all sorts of things. So it's great. Or it seems to be great. It seems to be working, so that's good.
So what does this? So how do you start off the shindig? You know, Rick, are you familiar with what a shindig is?
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay. As long as we're all talking
No, in
on
fact,
the same hymn sheet.
pre-show, I asked Julie, how did you come up with the name Shindig? I haven't heard that in so long. I go, you don't look old enough to know what a shindig is. So it was one of those words you just don't hear that much anymore. And but it's a good word, and it connotes kind of a fun party type thing, and you're just getting together and doing something, having, you know, whatever experience you want. So I thought that was interesting.
I mean, it's funny because the shindig, I got some feedback when I started it, and I had some people who said to me, no one will come to something with a daft name. You know, if you call it something like a Facilitation Shindig, it sounds irreverent, and it'll put some people off. And I went, yeah, I'm good with that. I don't mind. The folk who get over it and come are exactly the folk that I want. So it is designed to. The original invitation was rattle the foundations of practice.
Mm-hmm.
So we practice here. We know what we do, and we do the same things time and time again with our clients. But quite often we have learned on the job as facilitators. We've learned from other people. We've learned from our co-facilitators. And every time we have a co-facilitator, our learning kind of spikes, I think, or mine does. Every time I work with somebody else, I get a sort of hint or a tip about how a different way of doing things. And so the invitation originally for the shindig was come and rattle the foundations of your practice, like give them a shake and see what you're going to keep and what you're going to get rid of. You know, what are the new behaviours or the new techniques that you're going to try. Yeah, and it seems to have worked. So yeah, you're right, Rick. It's got a quirky name, but for all of those reasons.
But it makes it fun. I like the name. When I heard it, I go, that sounds actually fun. But I could see where some stuffy people would go, no, I'm not going to go there. Don't like that. It's irreverent. But yeah, get over it.
That is a fair thing as well. Like it's not outcomes based. It doesn't have objectives. It's not, you know, it's not proper in that way. But it's true experiential learning for practitioners, and it's about putting theory into practice. So I have a theory that this will work.
What's interesting, I did some training for the, back then it was ASTD, but the ATD, they did one-day seminars on, for example, I did some on video editing, sound. And so in the video editing class, I really didn't have a set of objectives, or not a lot. We're going to do this, 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 and this. And it was very practical, a lot of hand-holding and doing, and not just me talking. And I got dinged by about 2 people for not having good objectives to start out. My question was, did you learn anything? Oh yeah, I learned a lot. Then does it matter? Well, but the objectives weren't there. Okay, well then don't worry about that. You didn't learn anything that you didn't think you should learn. You only learned what you needed to learn. But it was interesting because it was mostly trainers, and they were so reliant on objectives. And I kept saying, the objective is happening. It's a one-day class. You're going to learn video editing. That's what it says. But well, not video, but video shooting and a little bit of editing. So ideally, and the rest was all hands-on. But it was funny hearing people go, what about the objectives? There are objectives. Just look at the title. Everything in that title was covered. Now you know what you had to cover. So aren't we going to get along? No. We only have 6 hours, 7 hours together. Let's just do it. Let's just go. Because we broke in groups real quickly. Within about an hour, we were in groups for the rest of the day. So it was sort of interesting that that's never happened to me before, where I did some teaching and the only thing people didn't like was there were no objectives. Okay. And people do that on e-learning all the time. For example, where are the objectives? Objectives are so boring. Nobody remembers them. And why spend 5 minutes in the beginning telling people what they will learn, which they may not learn at the end of it?
Right. Absolutely. And I gave that up a long time ago because I find I was doing it for other people. I'm like, try to tell you what you're going to learn at the start of this. Like, I know what I intend you to learn, and I know the experience that I hope that you'll have. And we've designed it really carefully so that you'll have some takeaways. And we'd really like your takeaways to be these. But actually, who knows what else you'll get from it? And who knows if those takeaways will be your takeaways? Like, so yeah, I'm not a stickler for an objective.
No, I tried once.
Julie does have her own way of doing things, but she's also what I would describe as a bit of a free spirit, if that makes sense. Is that a nice way of putting it, Julie? You're a free spirit? Definitely,
yes. Yes.
Yeah, but to also.
So she had, by the way, she had one of the funniest lines of all at the beginning.
To give Julie her credit, she also speaks at the big events in the UK. So Julie regularly speaks at the Learning Technologies Conference and Expo that you were at, Rick. I don't think you met. I don't think Julie
we did.
At
no.
that. But Rick was actually there.
And I was chairing this year.
Yeah, 2 years ago, Rick was there. But, it was, as you know, Julie, there's just so many people that are there. There's a limit to how many people I can introduce people to.
Yeah.
No, I think we missed each other. I wasn't there 2 years ago, which is the one Rick was at.
I was at the one, not this year, but last year. Year and a half.
Yeah. I was chairing some stuff this year for them.
Yeah, but you do speak regularly at these events. So it's not just you do the Shindig stuff. You do, you're involved in other things as well. Are you also involved in the Women in Learning thing that Kate Graham's got going?
I am, yes.
Yeah, there we go.
And I'm also involved in unconferences. So we do the L&D Connect unconferences. So we do open space stuff here in the UK for learning and development practitioners. I have fingers in lots of pies, right? I just do lots of different stuff.
No, but that's great. And what I just thought it would be fantastic to do, which is one of the reasons I wanted you on eLearnChat, is to try and, introduce you to a wider audience, because I've obviously known you, for quite a wee while. And I said to Rick, it'd be really fantastic to have my friend Julie on, because what she's doing with the Facilitation Shindig, I think, is actually really worthwhile, because it's not like a train the trainer session. Can you imagine anything more boring than a train the trainer?
No, I mean, typically the people who come are really good at what they do. So it's not, or starting out, actually, there are people who arrive and they're just going, I don't really know how to do this. But then what happens is the people in the group who have lots of experience will just share. Oh, right, you're bumping into that problem. Oh, I bump into that. Here's some ideas. It's great,
And do people feel comfortable sharing not just their successes, but also sharing the things they can't do well? Because very often people actually find that sometimes they can find it a wee bit threatening.
The deal right from the start is, if you show up here, you are prepared to fail. You are are prepared to giggle and make mistakes and scratch your head and ask questions and be curious. Again, so I'm really clear about that when when people say they want to come. If they talk to me about it, I'll say, it's kind of improv-y, it's agile, it's just you this is your space to mess it up. So actually what I'm finding is people are quite grateful for that, because that's the deal. Like they literally do not have to be perfect or have it right. You can prototype to your heart's content.
So if you're getting organizational management involved in funding this, if you're getting organizations to fund this, how do the more senior people up the organization, up the chain, how do they feel about that? Is that something that they are also comfortable with?
I guess the proof in that is when they say, yes, we'd like to work with you. Yeah, there is a level of comfort with it. I mean, it's not completely off, it's not like madness. I don't like run in and sort of run around and create chaos with them. I can talk really, really clearly to the senior teams about the difference between experiential learning and how long that is likely to, the longevity of that learning. Like, people will put it into their practice and are likely to be able to use it instantly. And I was watching one of your previous conversations with Steve Wheeler, who I adore, and Steve was giving an example of showing surgeons a new technique, and them literally leaving the room and going onto wards and trying straight away, and the impact of that. And I am not in any way, shape, or form claiming that I'm working with surgeons, but that idea of practice in the room and then immediately being able to use it, and the use it or lose it thing. So this is not theoretical stuff. This is practical, and roll your sleeves up and get on with it. And most senior leaders are okay with that if we have the conversation about what you're likely to see. And then the folk who come are sort of speaking for themselves about it. They'll say, this is what I've learned, this is what I've used, I feel more confident, I feel more competent, I don't feel de-skilled, I feel re-skilled. So yeah,
Well, it also seems that there's a strong element of team building among all that too. So you're not just getting the ideas out, kind of think tanking it a little bit, but you're also building the teams, because it sounds like people do work together. They help each other. Yeah, which is good. A natural kind of way to do it without saying, all right, you're now going to become leaders. It's like, I always find it funny how you force somebody into leadership when they've never led anything. And this doesn't happen too well. They've got to kind of build into that position. And I know people claim that they're like leaders, and you look at them and go, I don't think you could lead anybody anywhere, especially in an emergency. What would you do? Scream? Okay, that's good. But it's when you make it natural like that, and that's why when Leslie was saying you take a very natural approach to things, I think that's good, because it becomes very organic. And when you have something organic, there's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of movement that can happen. And it happens in a way that people don't even realize that sometimes they're being herded into maybe a place or not, because it's very organic. It just happens. And that's good. It's a good way to teach and learn, and especially for people who have to do this for a living, I think it puts them in a place where they're thinking about it differently, which is good.
No, I agree with that. And again, it's the improvisation principles. So you can only really improv and go off, onto your own riff and do your own music and stuff if you really, really, really understand the music and the beat and the instruments first. Now so I have, I've done my 10,000 hours in rooms with teams and individuals. I have messed up spectacularly, in my own ways. I have crashed and burned. I have had wonderful successes. I've left rooms with thousands of post-it notes dotted around all over them. So I think I have an ease sometimes with what's about to happen, because I kind of do the thing where I'm going, yeah, been there, seen that, done that.
Now,
So
Julie,
Got a t-shirt, been in the video.
Now, Julie, I'm curious. Are you artistic in terms of the arts or music or anything like that? You seem very creative.
Right, okay, not music, writing.
Writing, okay.
Yeah.
I
So I
yes,
have a blog.
I think yes, she is.
Okay.
My
So I do-
experience of Julie is that yes, she is. You're not a person that wants to spend all their days looking in front of a book that's got lines along it or boxes in it. So you write along the lines and stay exactly straight, or you only tick a cross within the box. That, to me, that is not you.
No.
If that makes sense.
No, that's right. Yeah. I'm not so I have an academic background, but I'm not an academic, right? So I am definitely a practitioner. I am.
Yeah.
And I really value and encourage other practitioners. So I think that's really, really important that we can garner some expertise from the people around us as well as from the experts. I think you need both. Like, we need people who are experts and who've done the research and who can demonstrate to us both academically and thought leader wise. Sometimes they're not so academic, but they've got some radical ideas. So I think there's loads of places that you can learn, but then having a place where you can bring it into practice is really important. And so for me, like, that's a real kind of passion. So the creative
that was another reason why I wanted Steve Wheeler on the program. So I introduced Rick to Steve because Steve is an academic, but he's also a practitioner that's got fantastic vision and practical skills.
And he was a musician. He was a punk rocker. He's a rock impresario. And I was going, this is a great combination. This is cool. So it's just interesting, where people come from and how they wind up where they wind up. I found that fascinating. But yeah, that's all good stuff. Now, is the Shindig part of your company, the Fuchsia Blue, or is it separate?
It was kind of a side project, if I'm being honest. So it began as a sort of a experiment. What would happen if we got a bunch of people together in a room to encourage them to talk about their practice? And then, okay, that worked. Let's do more of that. It sits very much alongside. I have a small consultancy that operates out of Edinburgh. My work is around culture change and leadership development, so I do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the Shindig sits very naturally within all of that, because obviously when you're working with culture change and you're working with leadership development and you're working with leaders, you often have to do a lot of facilitation, and you often have to sit with some quite uncomfortable conversations or challenge some of what you're hearing and seeing in the room. And so that translates really well into encouraging other practitioners and giving them space to try stuff out.
And that's just great. By the way, Rick, what she's got behind her, the lights are not Edinburgh. They're lights on her top of her window.
Oh.
You're not looking out. You're not looking out onto Edinburgh.
My window's there. I can happily turn. I can turn my camera around if you want to see Edinburgh.
No, it was just in case. No, it was in case Rick was thinking, where's Edinburgh? Because it's still light. It's at 6 o'clock. It's still light, and in Scotland, it's still very, very light in Edinburgh. But Edinburgh is an absolutely beautiful city.
No, I've heard.
So the next time you come to the UK, Rick, you need to go up and visit Julie in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend who also lives up there that I know who used to work with me years ago. So it looks beautiful. I've seen the videos and the travel logs. I go, oh, it looks really lovely up there.
It is.
And they have a very good train system or subway system.
No, that's Glasgow.
Is it only Glasgow?
Yeah, Glasgow.
I thought Edinburgh also had a train system. No?
Edinburgh's got a train system, but not underground.
Oh, not
the
underground.
Is
Okay.
Glasgow.
Okay.
It's in Glasgow. It's called the Clockwork Orange. Because all the trains started off being orange. But Edinburgh is absolutely beautiful. You know, you've got so much history, and it's also so near the coast. You know, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful city.
Yeah, it sounds nice. I'd like to get back out there again. It'd be nice.
So is there anything else you want to share with us, Julie, before we finish up?
I don't know. Have you got any other questions for me? I don't think so. If anyone, if anyone's interested, get in touch with me. That's always a good thing. I love that.
And we have your information below, so people can get a hold of you. It's in the show notes.
And the video will be available afterwards, so people will be able to log on and have a look at it in the same way as you were able to look at Steve Wheeler's. So I'm just saying, if there's anything that you want to finish up with, please feel free to do a bit of a self plug.
Oh Lord, Leslie, this is me you're talking to. Self-plugging is not is also not my wheelhouse, right? So details for the Shindig are on the bottom. Shindigs I'm currently running online. Everybody very, very welcome. Please do check out my blog. Oh, there we go. There's me standing in a bunch of folk. That was an unconference. Please check out the Fuchsia Blue blog as well, because I've got some writing on there about sort of leadership and learning and all those types of things. And say hello on LinkedIn and things, or on Twitter. So I'm at Fuchsia Blue on Twitter if you want to hunt me out. I'm there pretty much daily for my sins.
And it's not just work in Scotland that you do. Just to make it clear to everyone, what you're doing is not limited to Edinburgh or Scotland. You work with people across the world.
Yeah, you see, this is where I forget to say that. So, I've worked in the States, I've worked out in the Middle East, all across Europe. I've been incredibly fortunate to have opportunities to work all over the place. So, I've worked with Mazda, I've worked with the World Health Organization, oil and gas, all sorts of things. Very varied. It's all good.
Yeah. That sounds good. Mazda was in Los Angeles, right? Or in Japan?
Mazda?
Yeah.
No, I was working with their European teams. So I got in Copenhagen and Madrid and Germany.
Interesting. That's fun.
And Portugal. How can I forget Lewis? Yes, I was in Portugal.
That sounds
good. So have you been to LA at all? So have you been out to Los Angeles? Worked there?
Do you know, I've never been to the West Coast. I lived in Chicago for a summer. I ran roller coasters at Six Flags Great America just outside Chicago for a summer when I was 20.
That's funny. I don't know if you can do anything in Chicago today. It's dangerous. Anyway, well, hey, it's been a pleasure having you on. We have your information below in the show notes. We'd love to have you on again and maybe go further into some of the things you've done, maybe give examples, or we could go through. Maybe, hey, next time you could try something with us. We'll be your sheep. You can facilitate us. It'll be interesting. But that could be a lot of fun. And also, if you're watching the show, I forgot to mention that Leslie's charity is learnappeal.org.uk. I don't know how I forgot that, but it was one of those mornings. So go take a look at it. They do.
You don't
great
have to
work.
worry about it. Julie is a big supporter of the work that we're doing, and she always promotes it and mentions it to people at every opportunity, and so does Fee. Fiona McBride, Fifi, so does she. Always mentions it all the time. So
sounds good.
They are big supporters and have been since the beginning, since
That's
the
great.
outset.
That is great. Anyway, we will see you all next week. Have a great one and stay safe. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.